Hey everyone, and welcome back to Rowing with the Homies. I'm Finlos. Today is May the 15th. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you're able to get some movement in today, find your rhythm, find your focus, and just get moving. Whatever your exercise or movement may look like today, I'm genuinely glad you're choosing to spend this time with me. And I've been immersing myself in a lot of different things lately, keeping up with the news, but also really enjoying stories, thinking about the media that resonates with me, and something that's really been sitting with me, occupying a lot of my thoughts recently, is the second season of Andor on Disney+. It wrapped up this week, season 2 did, and it actually served as the series and show finale while connecting it to the movie that came out about 10 years ago, Rogue One, and revisiting that world, the characters, that story. It really has brought so many thoughts to mind, not just about that galaxy far, far away, but about our own world right here. And just thinking about that, just a reminder that this show is really here to connect what's happening in our world, whether that be current events, big questions, or even media that really makes me think, makes you think, and connecting that with what's happening within ourselves and in our bodies, in our minds, and in our experiences. It's about trying to find the link between the external landscape and our internal one. And today I want to dig into, explore the power of story, the comfort of the familiar, and the sometimes surprising moments of quiet we can find, even when navigating challenging internal states. But to get back to it, we're going to start with what's been on my mind, and that's Andor. And it's not just great Star Wars. I will admit right off that I have a big bias. I grew up with the original trilogy. Not every Star Wars product is great, but I love getting to explore that universe. But Andor isn't just a great Star Wars show. It's great television in general, and particularly because it's an excellent mirror to our times. But for those of you who may not be familiar, Andor is, and stick with me, this is a little convoluted because it's Star Wars, but Andor is a prequel series to the movie Rogue One, which is a prequel movie to the original 1977 Star Wars film A New Hope. And the show Andor follows Cassian Andor, a character who we meet in Rogue One, who is not the main character of that movie, but a major character. But we meet him in that movie, and Andor, the TV show, takes place in the years leading up to him becoming a dedicated rebel spy that we see in the film. But unlike many Star Wars stories that focus on Jedi and Sith and grand galactic battles, space wizards, Andor is deliberately grounded. It's about the ordinary people living under the heel of an authoritarian empire. It's about the slow, messy, often terrifying birth of a rebellion. And season 2 really deepened and expanded on those themes. So why is it so good? I think there's a lot of reasons. I mean, it's receiving critical acclaim across the board, positive reviews. They go beyond just the Star Wars fan base. Surprisingly, not everything is loved. And I think really the praise is coming down to several things. First, the writing is just really good. Tony Gilroy, who's the creator of the show and executive produces it, he and his team have really crafted complex, morally ambiguous characters and layered narratives, stories that intertwine. This isn't a simple tale of good versus evil, which is kind of a common critique of some of the stories within the Star Wars universe. Instead, it explores shades of gray, difficult choices, and the personal costs of resistance. The dialogue is sharp, it's realistic, and often quietly devastating. There are so many moments of just truth to how the characters react and respond to the situations that they find themselves in. In addition to the good writing, the actors are all phenomenal. Diego Luna, who is great in everything, is really, he embodies the character of Cassian. He is charismatic. He is sometimes unlikable, but he really shows the transformation of the character from kind of a cynical survivor to a man who truly believes in the cause. It echoes, to a certain degree, path of Han Solo, but Andor, the character, is a much more rich, developed, multi-layered, and multifaceted character. The supporting cast is just as good. Denise Gough as the ambitious Imperial officer Dedra Miro is so unlikable, and the actor relishes in her portrayal. We've seen interviews of her where she comments on her tendency to accentuate her natural frown to make it part of the character. And she really embodies that character so well. Kyle Soller plays Cyril Karn, who is essentially a rent-a-cop who becomes Imperial acolyte. Again, such a sycophantic, really Star Wars universe equivalent of an incel, that the actor just does such a good job of being unlikable but complex at the same time. Stellan Skarsgård, who is just an amazing actor, of course, he really adds nuance. I'm going to keep saying that word probably a lot. Nuance and depth to his character, Luthen Rael, who functions essentially as like a handler of various cells within the early rebel factions. He is a very ambiguous character who is willing to get his hands dirty in ways that many aren't. And his character, along with Elizabeth Dulau, who plays, I'm sorry, her name is escaping me right now, Clea, who is Luthen Rael's assistant. Together, they form this really symbiotic relationship of energy and focus, which gives some interesting texture to the formation of the Rebel Alliance as not just the ragtag do-gooders that we see in A New Hope, but grounds them in the grit and the violence of what revolution really looks like. All of these actors, all of them across the show, bring depth and humanity, and it makes the political and the personal stakes of the narrative feel incredibly real. I think something that might be the most difficult thing to do without becoming heavy-handed, without becoming melodramatic, is that it understands that oppression isn't just about stormtroopers and space battles. It's about bureaucracy and surveillance and economic exploitation and all of the insidious ways an authoritarian regime grinds down the spirit of ordinary people. And season 2 continued to explore this in painful detail, with soul-crushing labor camps, arbitrary crackdowns, with exploiting entire planets for natural resources. It shows the banality the commonness of evil in a way that few other science fiction stories have dared to do. And beyond the writing and performances, Andor stands out not just among Star Wars properties, but among many big budget productions because of its approach to filmmaking. While many of its contemporary Star Wars shows and movies, and even some other broader sci-fi and fantasy shows, have come to rely heavily on this technology called the volume, which is essentially a soundstage with massive LED screens, which creates virtual environments. This was first made popular, or the technology came from Jon Favreau when he directed the Lion King live action movie, but it became popularized with the show The Mandalorian. Instead, Andor made a deliberate choice to shoot extensively on location and use practical effects and practical sets. Which isn't to say they didn't use digital effects, because it's Star Wars and there's spaceships, so there's special effects everywhere. But they were done mostly to enhance the real environments or create scenes of alien worlds that were believable as being alien, rather than replace physical spaces entirely. You get a sense of the real lived-in streets, the grit of a prison, or the scale of the unnatural imperial architecture, because they were often there in real places. And that dedication to practical production gives the show a tangible, lived-in quality that's often missing in shows not shot predominantly on sound stages against LED walls. And it really contributes to the show's grounded, realistic feel. Another difference to other TV right now, at least in the Star Wars universe, if not others, is that the pacing of Andor is slow. It's a slow burn. It's often quiet, and it takes its time to develop its complex, interweaving plots. It takes its time building characters, establishing settings, and letting the tension simmer. And this is a stark contrast to the often breakneck speed of other blockbuster franchises that prioritize constant action and fan service. Andor and its creators trust the audience to invest in the world and the people, allowing the political thriller aspects and the character arcs to unfold naturally. And this patient storytelling, combined with stunning cinematography and a very distinctive score, creates an atmosphere that is unique and deeply immersive. It feels more like a prestige drama that happens to be set in the Star Wars universe than what you might think of as a typical Star Wars sci-fi adventure. And this brings me to its relationship to the larger Star Wars universe and canon. Andor doesn't contradict the established lore, but it enriches it immeasurably. It provides the necessary context and emotional weight to understand why a rebellion was necessary, why people like Cassian were willing to sacrifice everything. It makes the stakes of the original trilogy feel even higher by showing the grim reality from which that hope had to emerge. It takes the often simplistic portrayal of the Empire and shows the complex, terrifying machinery behind it. A common description is, it's Star Wars for adults, and I think that that's true, but I think it's meant in the best possible sense. It's not just about violence, but it's about maturity and nuance. I read an interview with Gareth Edwards, who was the director of Rogue One before Tony Gilroy came and did extensive reshoots. But Gareth Edwards says that his original inspiration for Rogue One, and now we can extend it to this broader Andor series, is in the original crawl for A New Hope. There's one line about the rebel spies stealing plans for the Death Star. And from that one line of exposition and a text crawl in the original film, this entire rich story has been built and grown and has made the entire broader Star Wars tapestry all the more detailed and nuanced. And I think that it represents a really powerful form of mythology building that I think is very valuable. And instead of replacing and rewriting, it's augmenting and adding flavor. And I think it's really powerful. But to really bring this home, I think perhaps the most significant reason Andor has been on my mind is how powerfully it serves as a lens for examining our own current society in America and around the world in relation to resistance and fighting authoritarianism. The show depicts a society where institutions are being corrupted, where dissent is being criminalized, where fear is used as a tool of control. It doesn't romanticize rebellion. It shows the paranoia, the sacrifices, the moral compromises, all of the things that sometimes have to happen in that fight. And watching these characters grapple with challenges, with seeing them find courage in the face of overwhelming power, seeing them build networks of trust and solidarity in a world that is designed to isolate them, it feels incredibly relevant. It prompts us to ask questions about our own civic responsibilities, about the lines between compliance and complicity, and what it truly means to stand up for something when the personal cost is high. It's a fictional story, yes, but its themes resonate deeply with the anxieties and struggles we see in our own political and social landscape today. And that kind of resonance, that connection between the fictional world and our real one, it got me thinking about a different kind of media consumption. This is something that I've talked about before, something I think about a lot actually, but it's something that I revisit often because I think it relates to a lot of different things, including mental health and connection. But revisiting the Star Wars universe and stories that I'm familiar with, even understanding that this is a new story within that greater universe. But we often seek comfort in the familiar. We rewatch our favorite movies for the dozenth time. We reread books whose endings we know by heart. We put on a playlist from a specific time in our lives, and it feels right. It feels good. And there's a real psychological science behind this phenomenon. Our brains are in many ways comfort-seeking machines, and familiar media provides a predictable, safe environment. When we engage with media we already know, there's few surprises, if any. There's no unknowns, and this predictability is deeply soothing. Psychologists refer to this as cognitive fluency. It's the ease with which our brains process familiar information. When something is easy to process, it feels inherently more pleasurable and less threatening than something new and uncertain. Our brains prefer the path of least resistance, and re-engaging with familiar stories or sounds is relatively cognitively effortless. And beyond the cognitive ease, familiar media is a powerful trigger for nostalgia. When we revisit movies, music, or books from our past, they transport us back to a specific time and place, often evoking positive memories and emotions associated with that period. Maybe simpler times, maybe cherished relationships, maybe significant life events. And research on nostalgia suggests it's not just a sentimental longing for the past, it serves important psychological functions. Studies have shown that nostalgia can combat loneliness, fights boredom and anxiety. It can increase feelings of social connectedness, boost self-esteem, and even make us feel physically warmer. That old movie isn't just a story. It's a connection to a feeling. It's a connection to a past self and past experiences that felt safe or meaningful. Familiar media also plays a significant role in emotional regulation. When we're feeling stressed, anxious, or down, turning to a beloved show or album provides a reliable way to shift our emotional state. We know how that piece of media makes us feel, the comfort, the joy, the emotional release, and we can reliably access those feelings by engaging with it. It's a predictable emotional outcome in an unpredictable emotional landscape. When you think about putting on a favorite comfort movie when you're sick, it's a part of the healing process, a way to soothe yourself emotionally. And I think for many of us, these forms of media can function in similar ways to friends in our lives. If you think about it, a good friend is someone you know, someone you trust, someone whose presence is reliably comforting. You know how they'll react, what they're likely to say. They're a consistent, non-judging presence. Similarly, that favorite movie or album is always there waiting for you. It doesn't demand anything new from you. It provides a familiar structure, characters or sounds you've bonded with, and an emotional landscape you've already navigated. When human connection feels difficult or draining, turning to a beloved book or film can offer a similar sense of companionship without the vulnerability or complexity of human interaction. Studies on parasocial relationships, the one-sided psychological bonds we form with media figures or characters, touch on this. While not a substitute for real relationships, these connections can provide a sense of belonging and emotional support. This impulse to seek comfort in familiar media can be used in incredibly positive ways. It can be a powerful stress reliever, a way to decompress after a long day. It can boost our mood when we're feeling down. It can provide a sense of continuity and grounding when life feels unstable. Reconnecting with media we love in the past can even offer insights into how we've changed or stayed the same. And paradoxically, sometimes sharing our love for familiar media with others is a way to build human connection. Finding someone else who also cherishes that same movie or book can be an instant bond. However, like any coping mechanism, this can also become a potentially harmful or isolating habit. If seeking comfort in familiar media becomes a way to avoid new experiences, to avoid engaging with the world or other people, or to avoid confronting difficult emotions or challenges, then it can become a form of stagnation or isolation. If it replaces meaningful human connection, it can leave us feeling even more alone in the long run. With all things, it's about balance, recognizing the comfort and value that familiar media provides, while also ensuring we're still open to new stories, new perspectives, and importantly, real-world connection with others. Like anything powerful, it can be a tool for well-being or a crutch that prevents us from moving forward. And understanding that dynamic, that push and pull between the comfort of the known and the growth that comes from the new, feels particularly relevant when thinking about how we navigate our internal landscapes, especially when we're struggling. Which brings me to the final segment. And today, depression feels like. And for anyone who understands the weight of depression, you know that it doesn't always feel the same. It's not a monolithic experience. Some days are heavy, dark, and loud with that relentless negative internal voice. Other days, it feels different. And today, for me, depression feels like quiet. A quietness that isn't emptiness, but a gentle break from the incessant self-critical voice. From that voice that tells me things will never get easier. And on days like this, the volume of the negative voice isn't turned all the way down to 0, but it's quiet. It's hushed. And the quietness hasn't come from a sudden external change or grand victory over the illness that is depression. Instead, for me, it feels like it's coming from an interconnection of experiences. First, it's a sense of connection to those I love. Again, not necessarily through grand gestures, but in the simple, steady presence of conversation, of connection, of intimacy, of the closest people in my life who see me and accept me and who welcome me. It's the shared time on our regular walk, or a text message checking in, or even the quiet moments when we're in the same room but doing our own things, but still sharing that space. In these quiet ways, they act as anchors, and not in the negative sense of holding me down, but in the sense of keeping me steady. These experiences are quiet affirmations that I'm not alone, that there are other people working through it alongside me. And even if our individual experiences are different, when the depression tries to convince me that I am fundamentally isolated and unlovable, these quiet moments of connection are powerful and gentle pushes back against that narrative. And the second piece to this quietness right now is coming from where I started today, and seeing the reflections of the struggle we are facing in life reflected in powerful ways in the stories that we're seeing, and from people who look and sound like me. And this is where this idea of familiar media and new media intersect, finding stories and characters whose experiences resonate with mine, especially those voices that come from a shared background or identity, or whose story is reflective of my own, of struggle and of resistance. It's incredibly validating. It's powerful, even when it's coming from somebody else, to see a feeling articulated in a way that I've struggled to name or describe myself. A pain that felt unique to me, a small act of resilience that I recognize in myself or in those who are close to me, seeing that reflected in these grand stories, it really does create a profound sense of being seen. It's a moment of feeling connected, a feeling like I'm not the only one. For those of us who can sometimes feel marginalized, or feel unheard, who feel cast aside, who feel voiceless or powerless, seeing our worlds portrayed with honesty and depth, it feels revolutionary. It chips away at the shame and isolation that the depression can thrive on, replacing it with a quiet sense of solidarity and understanding. Yes, it's fucking Star Wars, but yes, it's also true. It's a reminder that our experience is part of that story. Today, depression feels quieter. It's not gone. It's not defeated, but maybe a little less insistent. And I think the sense of quiet is being nurtured by these threads of connection. The quiet presence of loved ones, the quiet validation found in being reflected in the stories that I love. The reflection of shared struggle. It's a fragile quiet, and it's gonna shift. But for today, I'm holding on to it, recognizing the power of connection. If any of what we discussed today resonated with you, whether it's feeling moved by a story, recognizing your own comfort-seeking habits, or particularly if you're struggling with the noise or the quiet of depression, please know that you are not alone. These experiences in various forms are part of the human journey. Your feelings are real and they matter. If you're finding it hard to navigate these feelings, if the current feels too strong, please consider reaching out. Talk to a trusted friend or a family member, a mentor, or someone in your community. They can make a difference. And if you need more support, if these feelings are significantly impacting your life, please consider seeking professional help. Therapists, counselors, and other mental health professionals are equipped to provide support and strategies to help you navigate these challenges. As always, I deeply value your time and your willingness to engage with these topics alongside me. Please reach out if you have any comments, questions, or suggestions for the show. You can send me an email to finlos@finloslives.com. Find me on social media, or check out the website at finloslives.com. Please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss any future episodes. And if you found today's conversation valuable, I would be incredibly grateful if you'd consider sharing the show with anyone in your network who might also find it helpful or interesting. I look forward to our next conversation.